Hey guys, Matt here from our channel called Team Krieger,
Hey guys, Neo Axel here from our channel called Team Krueger.
and today we're gonna start Team Krieger reaction video, episode 427. Yes, so this video is actually from Fox Gotcha Animation 45. And just so you guys know which video you want us to react from your channel, leave a link for the video you want us to do your channel, and give you a shout out. Yep, so shout out to Fox Gotcha Animation 45. So let's see this. Okay, so this feels actually called the Five Nights at Freddy's game with the most sinister killer. So let's see this.
I've covered several overwhelming FNAF games on my channel before, and I'm sure I'll cover many more in the future. Today is no different. I've recently stumbled across a fan game dev by the name of Solar Neon, responsible for Late Shift at Nintendo World, which is in a video I've made recently with a very good song along with it. Well, call me surprised when I found out that Solar has actually been working on an entire series of FNAF games, and that 2 of the 6 of them have already been released. Knowing that, I couldn't help myself but get sucked right in, and now I'm going to force you to be sucked in as well. Today, we're going to be talking about Swing Shift at Farley's, a FNAF fan game with some of the darkest and most sinister storytelling I've ever seen. Before we start talking about the actual gameplay loop this game has to offer, I first want to talk about the stylistic choices of this game. Something
looks like
I
it
noticed
is
is that Swing Shift at Farley's really feels like FNAF 1. A lot of games try to replicate the style and feel of FNAF 1, but I honestly don't think many are capable of doing it.
The guy's
Farley's
demon
is
character looks really
definitely
weird.
one of them. The overall look and
Kinda
feel of the
strange.
game really reminds
Yeah,
me
the
of
same
the
sharp
original
teeth just like
Five Nights
me.
at Freddy's, which makes
Yeah,
the
but a
game feel
different way.
nostalgic. I love it. Anyways, moving on to talking about Night 1. There is plenty to talk about. Look at the length of the video. Again, the person that made this game also made Late Shift at Nintendo World, so you know we're about to see some of the most creative shit you've ever seen in your entire life. To start, there are a lot of places you're able to move, but before we go down the list talking about them, describing the doors is very important. Swing Shift at Farley's doesn't use a typical power system, which I love. It makes my dick not feel like it's on fire. However, the doors do have their own type of power system involved. When a door is closed, the door's fuse will quickly decrease. If it empties completely, then obviously the door will be forced open. So that bodes the question, what the fuck are we going to do about that? Very epic answer, I will say, and this brings up probably my favorite mechanic. As I said, there are multiple rooms you can go to from the office. Turning to the left door, you can turn once more and go to some weird back room area. I think this is a hallway. Then, turning once more, you can go to a storage room. Inside of this storage room, you can grab a new fuse. But of course, it's not just as simple as grabbing the fuse, as there is a minigame you have to complete first. A bar will appear at the bottom of your screen, and an arrow will slide back and forth. You have to time and click when the arrow is in the middle of the bar 3 times in a row for you to be able to pull out the fuse. I guess we have to really put our backs into picking up this fuse that probably weighs as much as all of the food in your mom's fridge combined. Get it? Because a fuse is very light, and your mom's fridge is empty because she ate it all? Yeah, you got it. Directly behind you while looking at the camera monitor is where your fuse box is located. You can remove an empty fuse and replace it with a new one you grabbed. However, the fuse has to be empty before you can replace it. So this will lead to you having to forcefully make your door run out of power at times. But that will make more sense once we start talking about the actual threats this night introduces. Speaking of which, let's do that now. Night 1 only introduces 2 threats. However, they both go on to serve a very important purpose. So let's talk about Basil first. Basil is this weird fucking dog thing. His goal is to attack your
Basil
left
looks
door.
like a version of
He will
Bonnie.
make his way through the cameras and eventually make it
Yeah,
to your door.
really is.
However, something interesting you'll notice about Basil and your hallways, for that matter, is that they have no lights. So you won't actually be able to see Basil at your door, nor does he make a sound cue informing you he's there. So that poses the question, how are you supposed to know he's there? Something about Basil, and every animatronic in this game, is that unlike characters from some other FNAF games, they will never move. backwards. So once Basil gets to his final camera before attacking, once he leaves that camera, you know for a fact he's at your door and you need to close it. This leads to you needing to constantly watch the cameras to track the characters, something I've noticed a lot of other FNAF games are unable to do without adding a music box or finding them on the cameras mechanic. See, fellow game devs, this game is proof that you can find an interesting way to use the cameras that isn't those two things. Basil will bang on the door when he leaves so you can open it again. In general, one fuse usually lasts about 2 attacks from characters before you should let it run out and replace it. Charlie is the next character introduced, and she does
Weird.
literally
Now that
the
Charlie
exact
looks
same
like
thing
another
as
version of
Basil, except
Chica.
she attacks your right
Yeah,
door. Not much
jeez.
more to say about her. Night 2 introduces 2 new threats, each of them doing something different, adding a lot more stress to this game. It's during this night I noticed just how hard this game was truly going to get throughout the later nights, because even just on night 2, you're already getting dogpiled, and the reflexes and balancing skills you'll need drastically increase. The first and most recognizable threat added is Florence. He is the Foxy equivalent
And I guess
of this
that
game.
one
He is in
reminds me
fucking
of Foxy.
jail. No, I'm not
Yeah.
kidding. He's literally behind bars. Throughout the night, he'll make his way through several phases before bum rushing your office like your mom bum rushed the cafeteria in her school years, canonically revealed.
Sorry guys, skip it because this one's even longer.
Yeah, it's for like 47 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool how this game is able to pull that off. Night 4, and again, just as Five Nights at Freddy's did, Night 4 introduces the big bad antagonist himself, Farley. And let me tell you,
Okay,
he's
now that
honestly
character reminds me of
probably
Freddy.
the least threatening character
Yeah,
this game's seen
I
so
kind of
far,
think of
with
it.
a mechanic
It looks
that
like those
makes him
Fortnite
sound a
charms
lot
are like
scarier than he
bootleg
really
versions of
is.
Freddy in the
Let's
game.
talk about it. Farley works in the
Yeah,
exact
now you
same
think
way
about
as
it, I
Charlie.
guess that actually
The
makes
goal is to
sense.
make it to your
Yeah,
right
definitely
door.
bootleg
However,
versions
the
of
big catch
Freddy,
with Farley is that
Bonnie,
you can't see
Chica,
him
and
on your
Foxy.
cameras. And
Yeah,
of
those
course, we
characters.
already know we can't see door characters at our door. So how do we know where Farley is? Well, every time that Farley moves, he will laugh, which, by the way, if you were curious, is just FNAF 1 Freddy's laugh. You will have to keep track throughout the night of how many times Farley laughs, as every 5th laugh will signal that Farley is now at your right door and that you need to close it. And this is where this game introduces a mechanic so cool, yet so useless. In your office, you will now see you have a little notepad. Using this notepad, you will be able to leave little tally marks. Now, why would you need to leave little tally marks? Well, this is this game's way of letting you keep track of how many times Farley has moved so you don't have to just remember. Every time you hear him laugh, open your notepad and mark a line. Once you deal with his attack, switch to your eraser, erase it, and start again. I think this is super cute and unique. I've never seen a FNAF game do something like this before, as most would probably prefer you just remember it yourself because that's way more AIDS-inducing. However, the way the rest of this game controls does bring up an issue with this otherwise awesome mechanic. I have 2 hands, in case you weren't aware, and on my 2 hands, 5 fingers are attached each. What's stopping me from counting Farley's movements on my hand? Doing this is actually a much better choice in my opinion, since it eliminates the time it would otherwise take to drop the camera, open the notebook, mark it down, close the notebook, and then reopen the camera. I think there's a very simple way to solve this problem and further encourage the player to actually use the notebook. All you would have to do is make another mechanic use a keybind. For example, instead of Whitney and the QuickTime event to get the fuse being controlled by the mouse, why not bind both of those systems to your control key? That way the player will have one hand on the mouse and the other on the keyboard most of the night, making it so that using the in-game notepad would make much more sense since you wouldn't have that open hand. I think the idea of the notepad is super nice, and while totally unnecessary, I think if it was encouraged in a more natural way, it would actually be one of the most interesting mechanics I've ever seen in one of these FNAF fan games. But as it exists right now, I just don't see any real reason to use it. Night 5 doesn't have a whole lot to talk about, really just being a much more stressful version of Night 4. On my playthrough, which by the way you can watch over on my second channel, Dexter Black, there was a point where I had to pretty much get 2 fuses in a row because I got unlucky with attacks. Honestly, one of the most stressful moments I've ever had playing a FNAF game. It was so cool. One interesting thing I do want to talk about on this night is the lack of a phone call. Just like FNAF 1, on night 4, the phone guy gets beamed out of existence by an enemy. On night 5, if you check the back room, you can see what I can only assume to be the phone guy with his head on an endoskeleton body. If there's one thing about Solar, the developer of this game, she does not hold back on the shock value of her games. That's what I love so much about them. Night 6 time, here we are. Spoiler alert, there's pretty much nothing to talk about, except two things. To start, there's no new threat. Night 6 is just a harder version of Night 5. However, if you look in the back room, you'll notice that the corpse is now missing. And this time around, we actually get a phone call. I'm not going to explain
Wow,
it
that's
because
crazy.
I literally can't. So just take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
Now you might be asking, Dexter, what the fuck was that, and why did you even show it to me? Well, dear viewer, if you reverse it, you'll hear the following, which I've added captions to. For those of you wondering
that's
what
kinda
any of that
creepy.
means, at the time of writing, I have no idea. And by the way, that inaudible line, I'm gonna need your guys' help with that. Let me know what you think it means. I even reached out to the game's creator, and even she told me that she forgot what the line said. So that's just awesome. But I'm not quite done talking about this game just yet. No, I found something interesting hidden inside of the game. On camera 9, there is a 1 in 10,000 chance for a character by the name of Midas to appear, acting as this game's Golden Freddy, even using the same laugh and
Oh, must be a
hallucination
rip-off
sound
version
as
of
him.
Golden
He
Freddy
enters your
also.
office and his jump scare
Yeah, that
plays.
bootleg
I'll
also.
just let you see it for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna skip that part. Alright.
I wouldn't really have a job, now would I? So let's start by talking about the tools at our disposal, because there are a hell of a lot more this time around. To start, let's get the obvious out of the way. We have
So I
a
guess
Farley
this
mask
must
that
be
we
the
can
second
use.
game of this.
However, you may notice the 4 buttons inside of this
Yeah, it
mask.
looks like it is.
Don't worry, we'll talk about them in a bit. You can also use your camera to flash the hallway in front of you for a short period of time. However, every time you do, you'll lose 1 film reel. Throughout the cameras, you can find film reels lying around and pick them up. Also in the cameras, you can flash and hold your light on them so that you can actually see, which is very nice. You may also notice music box symbols on a good majority of the cameras. Don't worry, we will also talk about that in a bit. But that's really it in terms of mechanics that actually matter at this point in time, which means we can move on to talking about the threats this night introduces. Night 1 introduces a whopping 4 threats, already matching pretty much the entire crew of the first game, so this is about to get scary. The first ones we'll talk about are Basil Jr. and Charlie Jr., these being
Okay,
the
those
toy
two
variants
are
of the originals.
the other
The reason
versions
I
of Toy
mentioned
Bonnie and
talking
Toy
about both of
Chica.
them is because they
Yeah,
both
what the heck?
literally do the exact same thing, so no point in talking about them individually. If you couldn't guess because you have a brain deficiency, their goal is to make it to your office through the big hallway in front of you. Since this hallway in front of you is so dark, you won't actually be able to see them if they're there. However, there are 2 things you can do to verify if they are. To start, you can obviously flash the hallway with your camera and check. However, if you don't want to waste a film reel, there is another way. Characters in Farley's Jr. will not move backwards, so once they make it to the hallway camera, if you ever see them leave that camera, that guarantees they'll be in your hallway. So, once you know they're in your hallway, all you have to do is put your mask on. Except, as I'm sure you could have guessed, the buttons don't work like a normal FNAF mask. Upon a character entering your office, their eyes will glow 1 of 4 colors. Depending on which color they are is which color you'll have to press inside of the mask. Once you do this, their eyes will switch to another color. Repeat this process until you've pressed 4 buttons and they will finally leave your office. I don't think I need to explain to you how fucking awesome this is.
That sounds crazy about pressing the buttons part when you put on the mask.
Used FNAF mechanics of
Yeah, I mean,
all
definitely.
time and add a twist to it that makes it feel new. Does it make a whole lot of sense? No, not really, but it's still really fucking awesome and I love it. The next threat this night introduces is Farley Jr. He works in the
Okay, now
exact
that
same way
one
as
reminds
Basil
me of
and
Toy
Charlie
Freddy.
Jr., but with one very frustrating difference. Remember how in the first game Farley would hide in your blind spots? Yeah? Well, Farley Jr. does the exact same thing, except this time around, he doesn't make sound cues when he moves. So that brings up the very appropriate question, how the hell are you supposed to know where he is? Fantastic question that is. If you look at your cameras, you'll notice a large tracker button at the top. Whenever you click that tracker, it will show you which camera Farley Jr. is currently in. However, every time you use the tracker, you have to wait an entire century to be able to use it again. This is literally the only way to tell where Farley Jr. is. So you'll have to get pretty lucky with your timings of this, especially on later nights. With the juniors out of the way, we can move on to the final threat that Night 1 introduces. That being the marionette. Oh boy, I promise you this thing is way worse
Oh, I
than you
think
can
I know
ever
this
imagine.
one.
Of course, this marionette uses
Oh,
a
yeah,
music
me
box
too.
mechanic. However,
Oh, yeah,
the
that
music
character
box
reminds
is
me about the
located on the
puppet,
desk in your office, so you
which is the
don't have to
marionette.
open your camera
Yeah,
to
her.
use it, which I honestly thought was great. But is there a catch? Are you retarded? Of course there's a catch. There's always a catch. The marionette can move throughout the night. The way she moves? Take a fucking guess. Exactly! At random, she'll make a sound cue signifying that she's teleported to a random camera. Another find them on the camera mechanic, mixed with a music box mechanic. All right, fine,
Wow.
fine. I've liked everything Solar Neon has done so far. Maybe if I look deep inside my cold, dead heart, I can find it in me to look past this. Maybe. When the marionette moves, you'll have to find which camera she went to and toggle the music box to said camera using the music box button I mentioned earlier. So while yes, you can wind it from your office, you're still not free of the worst fucking mechanic ever thought of by man. So, that was a lot to introduce in one night, and we've still got 4 or 5 more of these to go. To discover how bad it's going to get, stick around, because I get the really funny feeling that the further we jump into this game, the further my sanity is going to split. Oh my god. I don't even know what to say. Here we are on night 2, and this night is really going to show just how fucking difficult this game is about to be. This night introduces several new threats, all of which make me want to stitch my asshole shut so that I can never shit again. Let's waste no time and start talking about them. Tonight introduces the withered characters. Literally every single one of them.
Oh, it's the same ones from the first game.
Except for one, but we'll talk about that asshole a little bit later. To start,
Oh,
let's
and
talk
I'm
about
about to skip it. Sorry.
At this point in the game, you really don't have the time to be doing that. Now, if JJ gets into your office, she'll do something so foul, I'm trying to hold back the vomit from
suppose that's
spewing
Mommy's
out of
Big
my
Girl
mouth
version
just
of
thinking about it. If JJ
Balloon
gets
Girl.
into your office, she'll steal your
Yeah,
fucking
those
mask
dang
off the
bootlegs.
table. She will then teleport
Yeah.
to a random camera in which you
Literally.
have to fucking find her and click on her in order for her to return it to your desk. Oh my fucking god, that is literally the most evil thing I've ever seen a character in a FNAF game do.
Looks creepy.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, almost too
Oh, she
realistic.
took the fucking mask.
Yeah,
I'm
very
done.
realistic.
I didn't know she took the mask. I thought that sound cue from
Oh,
JJ
that must be him
was
in real
her.
life.
I thought the sound cue
Looks
from
with the
JJ
mask.
was her leaving.
Oh, yeah, his
It was
face
not. It's
mask.
her grabbing my shit. She
Yeah,
copped
wow.
me. She copped on my shit. I'd rather JJ kill 6 more children than take my shit, I'm being honest. Oh, but guess what? We're still not done because there's still 2 more threats to talk about. I know I said 3 at the start of the night, but these 2 characters are basically 1 character, which is why I'm saying there's 2 more. These characters are Candy Cadet and Astro. The fuck me silly, backwards, forwards, upside
that's
down,
new.
flip me, bend me combo.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
mean,
explain it.
looks
So
like it.
you'll need to watch camera 10 to see when either of these 2 leave. It's important you know who leaves first. If Candy leaves, he will approach one of your gates at random. You, of course, will not be able to see him at your gate without either flashing your camera or watching the cams to see when he enters. He also makes no sound cue either, so that's great. Once he's there, you'll need to close the gate until he leaves. However, shortly after Candy Cadet attacks, Astro will attack the other door shortly after. Now, you may be wondering why I mentioned how important it is for you to know who leaves camera 10 first. Well, that's because if Astro leaves first, he'll do something a bit different. If Asshole leaves first, he too will go to either of your gates. However, when he's at your gate, he'll start singing. You need to close which gate you hear him at until he leaves. And of course, when he does, Candy Kadickhole will soon attack the other side. These two add so much more unnecessary stress to this game, and Solar Neon knew exactly what she was doing when she made this. Asshole. Before we move on to night 4, I want to talk about another death minigame I got while working on this night. It's literally an exact copy of the Give Cake minigame from FNAF 2. The only major difference is that we play as Farley instead of Freddy, and instead of a random crying child, we see a girl come to the entrance.
Must be a different minigame of this.
Named Charlie. Soon after, a car pulls
Oh,
up
yeah,
to the
looks like it
building,
is.
and a man in a bunny mask gets out. Now, while I would imagine this person is probably Martinez, I do have to point out that in the code,
I guess
this
that
character's
person
name
reminds
is
me of William
Guillotine.
Afton.
And if you remember from the first
Yeah,
game,
except it's a
the name of
bootleg
the
version
serial
of him.
killer. So it appears we get to see the abduction before one of his many murders. But with that,
What?
we can move
That's
on
weird.
to
He
night
just kidnaps
4.
the girl
It
instead
got
of killing
worse,
her.
guys. Let me tell you.
Yeah, this
it
is
got
definitely different
so
than the original.
So much worse.
Yeah, way different than
Way worse than I
I
could
could
have
possibly
ever
imagine
imagined.
of this.
Not only
Yeah,
does
the
Night
real
4
ones.
add 2 more characters,
Yeah.
but it also adds a brand new mechanic that makes this game far more stressful than it already was. To start, let's talk about the new mechanic, being able to turn off the power to the building. I bet you can take a solid guess where this is going. When the power is off, you obviously can't check your cameras. However, you can still put your mask on and close your gates. With that in mind, now on to the 2 threats this night introduces. Let's start with the simplest one, Mangle. Mangle has 2 ways of getting into your
okay, I
office.
guess it's different
A
from
big
the
hallway
original
in front of
Mangle.
you, and the vent that's
Yeah.
on camera 9. I've neglected to mention this vent up until this point because Mangle is the only character to interact with it. Plus, you can't even see or
Dang, it says
interact with
Toys
this
R
vent
Us,
in
different
any
than the
way
toy store.
regardless. When you see Mangle in your hallway in
Yeah,
front of
literally.
you, you'll have to shut the building's power off. She'll swoop into the office for a few seconds and then leave, wherein you can then turn it back on. The vent is pretty much the same, but since you can't see the vent, the way you'll know you have to shut the power off is when you hear her in your vent. Turning off the power throughout the night when watching the cameras is so integral to this game's cycle is absolutely brutal. And the final character introduced on this night doesn't help with that at all. Withered Farley is the last character introduced on night 4, and he serves to be one of the most stressful yet. Once Withered Farley makes a successful movement opportunity, he will teleport directly to your main hall. Every time you flash the hallway, you'll be able to see him. Throughout the night, he'll slowly creep his way towards your office, and once he enters, as I'm sure you could have guessed from my intro of him, you'll have to shut the building's power off until he leaves. Mazel tov! I want to die. This is every single threat in the game. And let me tell you, completing this night was honestly one of the hardest challenges I've ever put myself through. And we're not even on to night 5 yet. So I'm really not excited for all that. But there is still one thing I want to talk about before we move on to night 5, and that's another death minigame I got while playing night 4. In it, we play as an unknown character seemingly on a camping trip with another unknown character. Child number 2 wanders off and we go to follow him, only to go deeper and deeper into the forest as we lose track of him.
sorry, I'm gonna skip
when
this
we
again.
Scene. Yeah, I thought so. But with that, Farley's Jr. closes down due to a bunch of bullshit that was completely expected, and swing shift at Farley's Jr. comes to a close.
Wow,
At least
that's probably a
that
shame
would
that
be
they
the
got
case
closed
if we
down.
didn't have a bit more lore stuff to talk
Yeah, I
about.
mean, literally.
With Midas actually showing up, I'm sure you could have assumed there's some stuff I was able to find. To start, by going into the extras menu and checking out the characters, moving over to the withered characters, you'll actually see missing posters for each of them, adding to my theory of depending on who jump scares you equating to who the dead child possessed, with Garrett possessing Farley, Charlie Emily possessing Basil, Terrence Martinez and Crystal possessing Jailhound, and an unknown person possessing Charlie. Why is this unknown? Well, because I never actually got Charlie's death minigame. But let's go take a look at it, shall we? In this minigame, we play as Susie Rosa. We walk around town until we eventually stumble across our dog, dead in the middle of the road.
Oh, that's just
clearly
brutal
being
and
hit by
sad.
a car. Shortly after,
Yeah, it
a
really
car pulls
is.
up next to us and the guillotine killer steps out, telling us that he can fix our dog if we get in the car with him. And I'm sure you can imagine what he does to her next. And speaking of minigames, there's still plenty to cover. Let's rapid fire through the minigames I never got in my playthrough over on my second channel, Dexter Black. Starting with the minigame called Riverbed. We play as an unnamed little boy in the rain. We walk past the place where Susie's dog was killed, and continuing forward, we see the guillotine killer dropping the body of presumably one of his victims in the lake before he is then attacked. And if you remember, this is probably his third victim, which was referenced in one of the papers in Farley's 1. The next minigame is called Save Them. We play as Withered Farley as we follow the marionette through the building. She spells out save them as we travel, but before we can get to the exit, the killer steps in and smashes the marionette to pieces. And finally, we have Late Night, a minigame that's really just a cutscene. We watch a mother talking on a payphone while her daughter is clearly trying to get her attention.
Freddy's 2 music
Eventually,
video.
she wanders off,
Yeah.
only for us to see the killer's car whiz by, presumably, I would imagine, hitting her with it, although no sound cue is heard to indicate that. The mother goes to look for her, and then we get jump scared by the marionette, which would tell me
Yeah, I mean, that
this
song,
little
I think it's
girl
called
would
It's
go
Been
on
So
to possess
Long.
her. Oh yeah, there actually is another
Oh,
minigame
yeah, that's
that
right.
I just didn't mention it for some reason, so I'll mention it now. It's called I'm Sorry. This one is also just a cutscene, and in a much different style from the others. A boy is sitting in the hospital with Mr. Martinez. They're watching the corpse of an unknown person completely wrapped in gauze. Looking back at Martinez, we see this unsettling image. And with that, that's all of the cutscenes in this game covered. However, we're still not quite done talking about stuff I was able to find. To start, there are several newspaper articles to read just like in the first game. Each appears at random when you click the paper stack in your office. They read, Marvelous Mimic Man. The winner of the 1995 Henton's Robotic Fair has been announced to be Vincent Martinez's Marvelous
1995,
Mimic Man.
wow.
This
It started in the
robot won
90s.
due to its impressive state-of-the-art AI.
Yeah, that was like a long
allows it to
time
be
ago. We're doing
perfectly
Team
mimic
Classic
the
Krueger
actions and
still.
poses of anyone
Yeah,
around
definitely.
it. Vincent Martinez, the proud creator of the Mimic Man, has made a statement on winning first place. I am honored to receive this award. Thank you to the judges and especially the voters who made this happen. I hope to show you more of the Mimic Man and other creations like him soon. Farley's closes its doors. Lawsuit from Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated closes down beloved family restaurant. After a long and grueling trial, Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated has won its lawsuit against New Edge Incorporated, the owners of Farley's Fun Zone. The lawsuit alleges that New Edge Incorporated not only plagiarized multiple of its characters, but also stole confidential blueprints and schematics for their animatronic mascots. As a result of New Edge losing the lawsuit, they have been ordered to pay Showbiz Pizza Incorporated $3 million in damages. While New Edge has yet to make a statement, their decision to shut all of their 10 Farley's Fun Zone locations has sent a clear message. Obituaries. Abigail Leslie Emily, September 5th, 1954 to July 30th, 1985.
Wow, that's
Abigail
way,
was
way
born
longer than I
on September
expected.
5th of 1954.
Yeah,
She grew up
really,
in a
really long
lovely house
indeed.
down north before moving to Utah and marrying a brilliant husband and having a lovely daughter, both of which were unfortunately taken away from her too soon. Abigail tragically killed herself on the 30th of July, 1985.
She
had
committed
a
suicide in
self-inflicted
1985?
gunshot to the
That's
head.
messed up.
We hope that Abigail is in the warm
Yeah, I mean, it really is messed up. I mean, what the heck?
So, a robot that can mimic people made by Martinez, a plagiarism
That's just
lawsuit
plain
for
dark.
blueprints and schematics, and a woman
Yeah,
who tragically killed herself.
really a big
Each with
deal.
Something redacted. And of
Yeah.
course, after getting killed by Midas, there is an additional paper you can read. Tragedy at Midas's. 10-year-old boy bitten by animatronic. This afternoon at Midas's Galactic Pizza Palace, one 10-year-old boy, Tobias Martinez, was bitten by one of the establishment's animatronic characters. It was reported that he was shoved inside its mouth by 4 children who have yet to be identified. Police have not yet confirmed if this is a murder attempt or freak accident, although they are still investigating. Tobias is reportedly in critical condition, with his frontal lobe nearly severed. The owners of Midas's New Edge Incorporated have yet to make public statement on the matter, aside from suspending all operations at the restaurant. Tobias Martinez was bitten and killed at Midas's. I wonder if this isn't the person we see in the hospital bed in the I'm Sorry minigame, as this is clearly this game's equivalent to the Fredbear bite. And since we're drawing parallels, let's draw another one. In the weird phone call all the way in Farley's 1, the first line mentions a riverbed. And what do we see in one of the death minigames? That's right, the guillotine killer throwing a body into a riverbed. Whose body this is, though? No other than Thomas Fiver, Martinez's third victim. But with that, as far as I'm aware, is everything that the first two Farley's games have to offer. I'm incredibly excited for the rest of the series that Solar has planned, and she's actually shown me a sneak peek of the third game. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything, but it looks crazy. Overall, both of the Farley's games are clearly heavily inspired by the original FNAF games, and even seem to be following the original pattern and story these games laid out. And I honestly really like it. Solar is very, very passionate about this project, and you better believe I'll be here to cover the rest of the games as they release. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think Swing Shift at Farley's is just too close to the original FNAF games to be memorable? Let me know in the comments below. In my Forgotten at Fredbear's video, I asked you guys which non-FNAF horror game you would like to see me cover in the future, and my favorite comment was honestly everyone that gave a suggestion. I appreciate all of your guys' input, and I do intend on making some non-FNAF content here and there in the future that I think you all will enjoy. The question of this video is, what got you into the FNAF community? With the question of the video being asked, subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you to these 3 talented artists for your fan art. You can submit yours
damn,
in
must
the
be a lot of fan
Discord
arts about
link in the
this guy.
description. Thank you to all of my super fan channel members. You guys are overflowing with aura. I've been Dexter, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!
I mean, totally a wow!
Sometimes baby steps turn out to be giant leaps.
How do you know when her diaper's wet?
Listen for the squish. When life...
Yeah, wow, indeed. Well, anyways, make sure you comment below, like, and subscribe.